Hello, everyone, and this is something I've kind of wanted to talk about one time and another that, especially considering a lot of the stuff that's been going over the year. Not to really get into that specifically, I'm pretty sure most of you probably can understand what the hell I'm talking about, though. But you know, being someone who's played video games pretty much, like 80% of my life. I mean, I've played the NES since I was a child all the way to now in current gaming. And, there were a lot of different time periods where gamer will, like, the term gamer was different things. Like, there was a time period where a lot of people resented the term because, like, I remember Extra Credits was, like, one of the last places more in the modern time period that really talked about that subject. That, like, we don't talk, like, call people who read books bookies or moviegoers or such of that, but in like, there were different time periods where people were accepting and unaccepting in the terminology, and it became very normal now, and I think it's more because, like, it's like some people try to use it in a resenting way, but it's kind of like, why care, really? I mean, that's kind of how I see it. It's like, it's just a word, I always like to say, like, when somebody says something about something I've said, I'd be like, what are you, Voldemort? And they're like, what? Because, like in Harry Potter, everyone's like, don't say his name. It's a word. Just a damn word. Anywho, kind of derailing all the way what I wanted to talk about. What is a gamer to me? What is somebody who refers to as a gamer? This has been a pretty debatable thing lately between casual people. What is a casual gamer? What is a gamer? How do you define someone who just played, say, Candy Crush on a mobile phone versus somebody going to, like, Smash tournaments? Like, what is a gamer? My opinion of what a gamer is not how many games you play, not even necessarily how many games you own. But to me, a gamer is someone who is beyond that. Somebody who truly invests their, I guess you could say, their soul, their time. They really care about the industry of gaming. They don't just, like, run out and grab the particular Call of Duty, or you just go grab the next Souls game, or just grab the next mobile big hit thing or something and just be like, look, I'm a gamer, I'm gaming. You really care about the direction, the customers, like, you care about how they treat customers, treating you, care about the industry as a whole, you care about where the industry is going, You have a lot of people who play a lot of games, even if they play, like, they're to the point, like, where I am, where they have so many games, but they don't really care about the industry. People who willingly buy all this DLC, I'm not against DLC per se if it's actually made after the game. I'm against when developers remove content intentionally from the beginning of development and sell that as DLC. And a lot, like, Capcom's done lots of bad DLC decisions in those ways. But, I mean, people who just sit back and let the industry go in the worst directions, I don't think they're gamers. They don't care about the industry. They just sit back and throw money at the wall regardless of whether it's right or wrong. I think the people who want to see the medium continue forward in a positive light are people who care about it. And at the same way, I also think it's important to also remember the past, you know. I see a lot of people, like, I'm not necessarily saying you have to play old games, you know, but it's just odd to me to run into someone and it's like, I can't play a Super Nintendo game, and it's like, why? It's not 60 frames per second, it's ugly, it's old, it's out of date or something. It just seems weird because, you know, to me, aside from like really early stuff, like, well, you know, like, there ain't like a set, except, how to put it? Think about like when real-time strategy games first appeared on consoles. A lot of people had to try and figure out a way to make a control scheme that worked. And there's a few that did potentially work, but there were also ones that were really horrible because they just didn't work very well with a controller. So it took time to like develop a system, you know. Besides that kind of situation, you know, I like to really think a lot of games can, you know, it's like you play a platformer now and you play an old platformer. The only real big difference should be possibly that it's going to be harder, really. Maybe a little less forgiving as a more modern game and that. But I like to think a lot of games can still be very universally playable for people. But I don't know, it just always seems odd to me, and again, like I said, you don't necessarily need to play old games, but I just feel like a lot of people are very disrespectful to games prior. I mean, like, look at, like, the big audience for Fallout, for example. A good chunk of people who play Fallout 3 New Vegas and 4 right now never even touched any of the other Fallout games. And, you know, I played games since the NES, but I never, when I would consider myself a gamer, when would I say I became somebody who invested into gaming, like as an art, as a hobby, as something I pour my soul into? I would say it was probably late Super Nintendo, early PlayStation 1. I could go and maybe try to push early Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo really, like, that was a time period that was shaping a lot of that. I was finding the type of game, like, in the NES, while there was a variety of games I played, there were, you know, it was just like, hey, everyone, let's go play the NES and, you know, goof around and stuff like that. You know, it wasn't like, I'm trying to complete it. I want to see the lore. I want to find everything, you know, depending on the type of game. I want to be challenged by this RPG or something. I didn't even know what RPGs were until the 16-bit age. And that was one of the first type of games I really started getting attached to. And over as the generation time went, I split it on to many other types of games, and, you know, newer types of gameplay and things, you know, came to be. And even now, we still get occasionally weird ideas. I mean, look at Undertale. While it's not like separate little sections of it aren't original ideas, they got combined into a new experience. Kind of a Japanese, quirky Japanese RPG with a bullet hell game, you know. See, weird stuff like that, and it just keeps things interesting. But, how to put it? I kind of just feel like a lot of people don't show respect to the stuff that came before. You know, it's not like I woke up one day and I you know, magically owned all the games I own, you know. there was a lot of stuff like there's a lot of Super Nintendo RPGs I would continue to discover and find and get to play even as the system became older and older and older and such. And I never got to play like an Ultima game for a long time. We're talking about really old games that were DOS games. If you watch my Let's Play channel, you would know I actually played Ultima 1. I own the Italian series on GOG, and I've messed around with 2. And I would say Ultima 1 was like a weird, that is a very, very interesting experience for something that's barely like anything you would consider RPG of modern standards if you never played it. It's still interesting. I like checking out stuff, like the history of stuff that, like, what's a good example of something I, like, kinda got into and then went backwards with? What's a good example of that? Off the top of my head, a good example of something I got into going backwards. Breath of Fire 3 might be an SLA one. I went from Breath of Fire 3, 4, then 2, and 1. Not a very long series, but that one I went in a backward spiral, but I wanted something that encompassed more time. Actually, Metal Gear is an interesting entry to actually bring up. I played Metal Gear Solid 1 on the PS1. I couldn't get into it. The above camera way it played, I couldn't play it right. So it would be years down the road before I would try Metal Gear again. And it would be Metal Gear Solid 2 that I would get the experience that let me play it, and then I would get the GameCube remake of Metal Gear Solid 1, and then Metal Gear Solid 3, and then I would actually get my first experience there to try the MSX version of Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear 2. And a little before that, I did play the NES Metal Gear and the Snake's Revenge on the NES. So that one I bounced around a lot, and then from 4 and 5, obviously. Well, then again, you got all the PSP titles. Like, I bounced around a lot with Metal Gear, and Metal Gear is probably one of the few stealth games I really actually play. I'm not really good at stealth. That's for sure. I can't deny that at all. But I don't know. I like going back and checking out the games that came before the ones I played. There's a very rare times that I feel like, this is just so old I can't play it. And, like, I'd say, like, one of the only times I can really think I've ever said that, and I really felt bad about it. Like, I actually felt bad to say it, but it was why I honestly felt, was when I tried EverQuest 1. When it became free to play, I tried it, and I was just like, I wanted to try EverQuest 1, because, it's like considered the first MMO. Of course, I think there was a 2D one that came, and then you could also argue MUD games before that, but, it's like, definitely the first major popular MMO. So it's like, I wanted to try that, and I don't know, I just felt like the Italian control scheme was so different from what I was used to. I mean, Fantasia Star Episode 1 and 2 on the original Xbox was technically the first MMO I ever played. Final Fantasy XI was second, then late Burning Crusade, early Wrath of the Lich King, WoW is what I got the experience with World of Warcraft. And I don't really play a lot of MMOs, but it does make me feel sad. But that is what I felt with EverQuest. That was, I don't know, it was really different. But you know, in general, I like a lot of different games. Hell, I mean, just the picture I'm using as a background here, I played tons of these games, like Toe Jam and All down there. Oh man, I played the hell out of Toe Jam and All 1 and 2. Not as much with the third one, sadly. I do own it, but sadly my copy has problems, so I have to get another one. But I kind of just wanted to talk about that a little, you know. I see a lot of people argue about whether somebody should refer to themselves as a gamer, what is a gamer, and calling people casual gamers. And I personally don't like usually calling people casual gamers because it has a very negative stigma towards it. But when I do use it, I don't usually refer to it as a negative thing. I just usually mean someone who's, you know, for anyone who's watched me for a long time, you know, I talk about games all the time. At this point in my life, I have an entire room devoted to video games. Not even counting what's in my living room, the stuff I'm actually playing at the time. Well, I have everything I own, collection, beaten, or not beaten in its own room now. You know, I invest a lot of time in, obviously, money, because video games don't rain from the sky, but and like I said, that doesn't necessarily just automatically make you a gamer. Like, some witch fucker can easily take, you know, thousands of dollars and buy all the video games they want. You know, if you don't, it real heart of the matter to me is just, you gotta care about it. And, you know, that's why I really care a lot about a lot of the censorship stuff that's been going on. Like, recently, with Xenoblade Chronicles. Now, one of the things I can understand. The other thing, the customization option for the main character, though, that was kind of stupid, though, in my opinion. The outfit thing, I kind of understand that, because that's a different cultural thing, because in Japan, the adult age is different, so that's a little different, a little more understanding. But at the same time, I find it hypocritical when you got people who argue about cultural appropriation with clothing, but yet they can't respect the different age of, like, adults and such of different cultures. It's like, oh, that's horrible, but you can't wear a kimono. That's cultural appropriation. Unless you're Asian. If you're non-Asian, that's cultural inappropriation. But I didn't really want to talk about that stuff. But, I mean, I just really think that's the heart of the matter. It's just really caring about the industry, wanting to see more good stuff out of it, and preserving it. Like, that's why I always, like, I know I always hype, not hype, but hop on about not wanting Steam-only games. Like, I want DRM free, I don't want to be online only, I don't want all these stupid things attaching the game to the internet and stuff. You know, unless it's a solid multiplayer only experience or MMO, that kind of thing is just there to bug the customer. It's just an annoyance towards the customer. Really, like, when it comes down to it, it's not the fact that I have a problem with playing the game. It's just, like, look at, like, companies like EA. EA used to be, like, awesome during the DOS age. Like, there's a reason they became a giant corporation, because they fucking dominated awesomely in the early years. And then as they became big, they became corrupt. And, you know, Steam's huge, and like I swear up and down with one of my coworkers, um, when Gabe Newell either leaves or something horrible, or he eventually dies of old age or whatever comes up, I feel the days of Steam, because I'm sure there is a horrible person willing to take his place and run Steam down a dark path. And that's the kind of stuff I feel when it comes to that. That's why I think DRM frees William Pawn. You know, I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, and I think options are very good. I think that's good with like the Humble Bundle store, where you can get Steam and DRM free, and that, you know, you can go with your preference. You're not force-fed the option. But I just prefer it because of preserving, you know. A lot of people don't realize how many games prior to the NES age that are just lost to time. Like, the only preserved forms of them are obviously illegal downloads on the internet. And even then, there's still lost games out there. Like, there's tons of games that never got preserved. And, well, of course, at this point, it's probably going to be a much rarer thing to see that happen. But, you know, I just kind of feel the day if we completely lose rights to play a game in our own personal household without having to connect to Big Brother or something 24/7 on an internet connection or something, you know. And, you know, the one day they pull the plug on whatever that service is. So, it's... But, I guess I'm just rattling on about stuff. I just kind of wanted to talk about the subject. What do you feel makes you a gamer if you go with that? Or do you feel like that's a... Because I know there's still some people out there that also don't like the terminology either. I personally never really cared about too much either way. But, and Dan's trying to contact me on Skype at the moment. But I love to hear what you think, because, you know, it's, you know, I'm sure you've heard it as much as I have about, oh, people shouldn't be called gamers, or we should be called gamers. What is a gamer? You know, I'm a gamer, you're a gamer, or you're a fake gamer. You're trying to pretend that you're a gamer so you can look cool and stuff, and that's, I guess that's kind of what brought that up. You know, there's a lot of mudslinging at people where different people want to say, like, you're a real gamer, or you're a fake gamer, your game quid sucks and that, and, you know, there's a lot of people who do that. I mean, like, look at Nia Sarkeesian, like, I mean, she's, I don't even know how anyone believes anything. Like, I mean, she in her own words in a fucking video said it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, that's some of the most stupidest con artist shit there. But you know, there's people who really have a passion for gaming and that, and I feel like that's why a lot of people get very touchy on that, because especially with people like Anita Sarkeesian, you know, I don't think anyone's opposed to having like an argument about something, or like, not an argument, but a debate about something. But she doesn't have a debate. She blocks everything, allows no comments or anything, and she just, I'm right, you're wrong kind of thing all the time. And then you know, you got all the kind of stuff where she's like saying, I don't care about games, blah 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 stuff, and recordings. Several videos have blatant misinformation, lies and stuff, and, you know, that's not caring about the industry. Like, you'll blatantly like, the Hitman thing's just, like, hit your damn head really hard in a brick wall or something. It's like, And that's not somebody who cares about the industry, in my opinion, because, well, you could make the argument whether there's enough divorce killers. You can make a interesting debate about that, but she's not debating about that. She's telling you forcibly with no options at all. So that's not somebody who cares about helping the industry, in my opinion. Again, I'm just rambling on. What do you think? I'd love to hear what you think, Gamer. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. This was primarily just kind of a rant thing. But thank you for listening, and if you were interested in the song that's playing, I just wanted something nice and soothing, actually, to kind of calm me down, because obviously horrible things have been going on in the real world, and people being even worse after horrible things have gone wrong. I'm not going to get into that, though, but it's from Undertale. It's a music box theme. Very lovely and beautiful, so thank you, and until next time, praise the sun.